lot of people are concerned about, is AI going to take over my job someday?
In our profession, it's a feeling. I don't think AI can get a feeling. And I don't think AI can speak the way that again, it's getting really pretty close, but the genuine sticking your hand out and shaking someone's hand and actually having that personal connection with someone, that is hugely powerful, and helping your clients to build value, save money, time, effort, product, solution, whatever it might be. But that power, that human connection of feeling great and helping them to feel great, you can't get that out of AI.
Welcome to the Freedom Point Podcast, where we talk about time freedom, passive investing through real estate, finance, and mindset. Let's dive in. Quick disclaimer as always, I am not a CPA, I am not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer. All right, welcome back, Freedom Point Podcast listeners. Thank you again for jumping into yet another episode of the Freedom Point. I'm so glad you're here with us again today. I've got another amazing guest, as I always do. I have Jason Cooper. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so looking forward to this. Always looking forward to podcasts. So I really appreciate you inviting me on your show.
Yes, thanks for joining us. So Jason's recognized as a top 10 thought leader in sales by Thinkers 360. He's a high performance sales trainer and coach, blending neuroscience, psychology, and practical strategies to help leaders and teams transform how they sell and connect. Jason, just off the get-go here, I don't know that I've ever heard, sales professionals, sales organizations, sales development, sales teams, ever using the words neuroscience and psychology together. So maybe you can let our listening audience know a little bit more about, kind of your background, your focus, what you're working on today.
Well, there's so many questions there, so many questions to answer for you. Let me unpack. So I've been in sales for many, many years, probably like yourself, over 30 years, and worked in global organizations in the UK, and 22 years been in Ireland. I've worked with the likes of Google in their EMEA offices here as a someone that's looking after their global leadership programs as a consultant. But I've also co-founded two startups. Probably about the last 10 years. I gave you a very quick synopsis there. There's a lot more to it than that. But about 10 years ago, decided working for someone else isn't really what I wanted to do. I failed a few times in finding something that was right for me. And then I decided, well, I've got a great voice. I love to speak, but I also like to help people, to help them to get what they want and need. So being a certified coach and a certified trainer, some other disciplines on top, I'm fascinated by the idea of decision making and the psychology behind how we think and what we do. And as I alluded in what you originally suggested about neuroscience, what is neuroscience? It's the study of our brain and how we do. But neuroselling is really understanding your customer and understanding their thoughts and their feelings behind what drives them. I know sales is always about them, but it's really good to understand what goes on in the brain. The more we can understand what goes on in the brain, the more we can help our clients to think better and more strategically. So that's pretty much what I teach now. And I help people think in a different way to unpack a different idea about how their clients work and their motivations, their drivers, their intrinsic motivations, their extrinsic motivations, and all of the other things that happen, including behaviors behind the body language, including other things that go on inside of us. So that's my little monologue there.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I appreciate that. And I'd love to throw you a little bit of a curveball here, if that's okay. So, I came from a 25-year career in the technology sales space. I was very blessed to be the top performer for 2 decades, of that 25-year run. So very blessed in that regard. But one of the things that I always, told my fellow colleagues is that people largely make decisions based upon emotions. They don't always make decisions based on logic and fact like people maybe think they do. So I'd like for you to maybe unpack, what I said there a little bit and kind of based upon your experience and understanding.
Yeah, so let's take a step back. Back in the 1960s, a guy called Dr. Robert McLean, I think I've done, he understood the power of the brain, and he separated it into three different areas. uh, the neocortex, which is the biggest part of our brain, which is the biggest decision making part. It crunches numbers, but it also fatigues us. The example is if you're ever going shopping with your wife and they're going into a clothes shop and there's too much choice, too much information is going through, and you get decision making fatigue. So the neocortex is crunching all of this information. It can get overwhelmed with a lot of stuff. Then you get the neocortex or the limbic system, and then that's the emotions that drive us. So exactly what you said, the emotions, our thoughts, feelings, our behaviors, and our attitudes, and our senses there. So five sense, and some people have a sixth sense. I don't know who they are, but some people think they have a sixth sense, and sometimes I say that's a gut feel. And then you have the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism, which is there to protect us. Produces high amounts of cortisol, which is a stress hormone. But that's good, and it's also bad. That can also flee us, or we can go off and fight. And again, there's quite a lot of stresses in high tech organizations now. We're back to back to back to back to back to meetings, which causes a lot of stress. And as you probably know, that you've been into high tech environments, and I have as well, and I know what it's like. So when we strike, and exactly what you said is, if we are playing around with the neocortex and we're asking um, questions and difficult questions that are challenging us, which is good, but you might get in decision making fatigue, which means that you can't make a decision about anything, and you're caught in that little groundhog day in your brain. So when you tap into the emotions and our emotional side, you can actually get a feeling based on what is suggested and what you're asking, some really good, clever questions. So yeah, you're absolutely right. People make decisions based on a feeling, but they unpack it afterwards and they go back into the decision making criteria. But initial feeling is, yeah, I want that, I love that, that's great, that's wonderful.
And no, I appreciate you unpacking that. And this is a fascinating, conversation. I think about, cortisol and stress levels and things, which can also lead to weight gain in certain people. And there's certain ways that people, deal, with that stress, maybe through, meditation or exercise, et cetera. But then I also, like your appreciate your idea behind a woman may be going into a shop and there's so many decisions to make on different what clothes to wear and it's overwhelming. It's kind of the same thought that I get when I enter into a restaurant and the menu is overloaded with things. I would almost just prefer that the menu have 7 items instead of 70 items.
Yeah, yeah, it's the another thing is the power of three. So when you're presented with three items or three things in front of you, the brain likes the top, middle, and bottom, and generally goes with a lot of SaaS organizations that have been doing this over the last many years. Like, they give you three options when you go and subscribe to a service: the top, middle, and bottom. And generally, you go for the middle. And it's the same when you write proposals. You would do a top, middle, and bottom, and hopefully they go for the middle version of it. And linguistically, language patterns that we use, you can present three things in the same way, but hopefully on the fourth option is the ones that they choose in the language. And really good politicians present that in a really good way. Barack Obama would have presented it in the linguistic language of three. But even when you present it in presentations, or even when you present things in Other forms of when you're actually having a meeting with a client, you can present things in threes. So it's an easier decision making, which is really good for our brains to decide on choices. When you're given too many choices, again, you get decision making fatigue. I need to go and speak to my uncle, brother, mother, sister, partner, client, director, whatever excuse that they can think of because they can't make a decision on their own.
So I think what I'm hearing, Jason, is that for your top sales professionals, your aspiring, top sales professionals, that even though you might have done, your homework, your research, you've built rapport, you've done your analysis to uncover, pains and needs and whatnot, still at the end of the day, it's important not to present the prospect or the potential client with one option, even though you've done your analysis and you've pigeonholed them down to one solution. Maybe it's important to present multiple solutions. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, what I mean by multiple solutions, you can again do what the SaaS people do. You can do top, middle, and bottom, and looking at based upon the ideas of decision making. Don't make it too complicated. Just make it really simple for them to decide on the one that you would like them to go for.
Yeah, it makes total sense. So I know that, in sales, there's a lot of, professionals that they often, know what they should do, but they struggle to change themselves, right? Why is behavior change so hard for people, and what's the secret to making behavior change modification stick?
Ironically enough, I was just speaking with someone earlier on that, and I was coaching them through that. And a lot of it is to do with the power of questions and what motivates us to do stuff. So when we talk about motivation, we're all motivated to do something which is down to our own perspective. No one is the same. So as a sales leader, we have to find out their motivations. What would it mean for them to do something? And find out their intrinsic motivations. What works for them? What powers them? What is success for them? What is going on inside of them? And as a salesperson, to change, and it's the same thing as motivation and change. You've got to find out what works for you in order for things to happen. And as we know, the James Clear of the 1% change, which obviously works, and habits and how we can do 1% every day. But it is the power of consistency to do something over 66 days, 21 days to form a habit, and then so on and so forth. But you've got to actually believe it to want to be true. Because if you don't believe it, you're not ever going to change or want to change or do anything different, and you're completely going on the same thing, and you're failing without failing forward, meaning that you're going, right, okay, I fell forward, but what am I going to do next time? Or feed forward is to change the I can't think of his name, who actually did the original idea on that. But if you feed forward, then you go, well, this is what I did last time. Maybe I'm not going to make the same mistake. How can I change it for the next time? So change happens on extrinsic and intrinsic motivations to yourself, but it is the power of asking yourself some really good questions to yourself, externally and internally.
Fascinating again, and I'd like to unpack one topic that you brought up, and that is this idea or topic of motivation. Okay, oftentimes I was, asked, Jeremy, how do you stay so motivated? You're grinding it day in and day out. You're consistently, amongst the top performers, in the company. What is it that motivates you, right? And there's a lot of different external things that certainly motivate me, like chasing after that next carrot, that next trip, that next commission check, right? I mean, you name it, lots of different motivating factors there. But at the end of the day, my motivation, I believe, actually came within inside me. And truth be told, most days, especially the dreaded Mondays, I woke up not motivated to hit the ground running, but my motivation came by just doing the thing that I knew was necessary. And by doing the thing that I knew was necessary, then I started to get motivated. But it wasn't until I took action on that day that I was not feeling motivated for me to get in a motivational state. Does that resonate? Make sense?
Absolutely. It's an anchor point that will make you do that. So it's getting out of bed on the Monday morning and everyone gets that fear and go, well, what can I do today to get myself out of that state? Um, some people journal. I journal. That sets my mind an intention. Um, I do exercise, not every single day, but that could set my intention to want to get up. But once you start making action, whatever you do and whatever we do, nothing happens until we make action. We can make all these feeble excuses, and we've all done this. And I've done this, and other people have done this. And you procrastinate. The more you start to procrastinate, the less you start to do stuff, and you start to think that fear of picking up that phone or that fear of sending that email, and you start to push back. But it's just amazing how you can program your brain first thing in the morning by a meditation or just talking to yourself or just having that quiet space in between. If you're traveling to somewhere, I think Brian Tracy said many years ago, if you're playing radio stations and stuff like that, it's chewing gum for the brain, meaning it's worthless rather than educating yourself by listening to a podcast or an audio book or something else that's going to help you think about going, oh my God, that's really good. I'm going to use that many times that I've been motivated in the mornings and just gone for a walk first thing in the morning. I just feel demotivated. And I go and listen to something in the head, Zig Ziglar or some of the old greats, or Think Rich, Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, or all of the greats like that. And you go, wow, that's a brilliant idea. I'm going to take that and I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to utilize that, or I'm going to teach that to some people that don't know that.
Yeah, it makes total sense, and you're exactly right. I mean, what you consume, with your eyes and your ears and your mind can definitely have a massive impact upon your ability to deliver success. It makes me kind of think about back when I was in high school. Believe it or not, I had a sales and marketing teacher that would constantly teach the class. You have to have very short pity parties, right? When things don't go your way, because things aren't always going to go your way. You're going to get told multiple times, no, I'm not doing business with you. And then what do? Right. And in some cases, my professor would say, Jeremy, sometimes we just need a checkup from the neck up to avoid stinking thinking and hardening of the attitude. And I'll never forget that till today. So
I'm going to borrow that. Thank you for that. That's a really good gift over to me. Thank you for that.
I'm Zach Haptonstall, CEO and co-founder of Rise 48 Equity. Our goal is to help you protect and grow your wealth by investing in these large multifamily apartment buildings. We do all the work as far as sourcing these large apartment buildings from the brokers, doing all of the on-site management with our vertically integrated property management company, doing all the renovations with our vertically integrated construction company. We completely rebrand the exteriors. We will renovate the interiors to our full platinum level scope, which increases the value of the asset to get that profit margin for the investors. If you'd like to learn about how you can partner with us on these exciting opportunities, and go to our website and set up a call with our team.
I know you emphasize, trust and credibility, that is important for that, top sales professional or that top aspiring, salesperson to really kind of achieve. What's the first step that a salesperson should take in a new relationship to really establish that trust and credibility early on?
I think transparency is a good way to go, and being yourself, which is a good way, and using your own ideas behind what you do. So people like people and brands they like, trust, and they can connect with. So having that human centric approach, obviously that you have some sort of methodology behind that, but just be normal. Don't be one of these robots. I've had it done to myself. Like they're just robotic. If you have a script, learn it, and just get rid of it. But make sure that you have a direction of where you need to be going in building that relationship up with your clients, because you're not going to sell to them first time. Depending on the size of the client, um, If you're selling insurance, it might be slightly different. But if you're doing like large scale enterprise sales solutions, there's going to be multiple touch points that you're going to be having. You're going to be speaking to the influencer, you'll be speaking to the buyer, you'll be speaking to other people within the organization. And once you map that out, you have to work with each individual person slightly different in the organization. It does depend on context, on relationship building in when you work with a client or larger organizations, depending on what it is.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And people do business, and people buy from people. They don't buy from companies, right? And so, a salesperson's ability to, connect and engage, in a way that they're building this relationship that's based on, knowing, liking, and being trusted. And we build trust, obviously we've heard it said many times before, you build trust one drop at a time, you lose it in bucketfuls, right? But how do you build trust? And I think, you nailed it. You build trust with somebody by being authentic and genuine, right?
Yeah. And consistency as well. Like you've got to be consistent with your actions as well. If you're going to follow up, you make sure that you follow up on the time that you suggested that you follow up. Is the amount of times that I get it, I'll give you a call tomorrow. Yeah, okay. And they don't call you tomorrow, they call you 2 days later and go, well, that's not consistent. That's not consistent with anything. So if they practice what they preach and do what I say, not what I do, but meaning if you're going to do something, you follow it up to say that you're going to do it. One of the biggest lessons that I've ever learned is if someone comes to me with they wanted some training or they wanted some coaching or whatever it might be, I'm very quick to get back to them, very quick to schedule a meeting, very quick to do the necessary steps afterwards, because I know quick to action is surprises people sometimes, and it helps them build, oh god, he really means that he wants to work with me, and he really means that he's following up. Even if I do a coaching call, I will think about what's being said and I'll send them a report afterwards. Or if I'm doing some training or if I'm tendering for a process, I will make sure that the power of technology nowadays really helps me, because I can record a lot of it now and transcribe it and send the actions that way. But that's really powerful as well. But consistency and accountability and knowing that you really are invested in them, and as you alluded to a little while ago, is to know everything about them is so key. Do your due diligence, and as LinkedIn would say, it's deep research into them and deep listening and really understanding about all the aspects about that client. That helps to build that trust, that helps to build that credibility, that because then you can have that really good conversation with them.
That's right. And what the client and prospect doesn't know is that the truth and the reason why you're so consistent and quick to follow up is because you have burning anxiety and panic inside of you that says you need to, be on top of the ball, on top of the game, et cetera, et cetera. There's this kind of element of, I guess we'll call it tenacity, right? Not every, top sales professional or aspiring, sales leader, for example, has that, inner tenacity. So would you have any, anything to say with respect to, how do we light a fire? If you're a sales leader, right? How do you light a fire under somebody so that they just have more, tenacity, in them, and, they kind of operate, their day to day with this constant sense of urgency?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that scarcity and that urgency as well, that always helps people to find them. And again, I'll go back to the motivators for, so as a sales leader, put the hat on there to find out how they can be motivated. It's to really find out as a salesperson, a little bit of background about them, their family values, and other things that they do in their life. If it's money that motivates them, what does that money do for them? Does that build a better life for them? Does that mean they can go down to Adair Manor and play golf, as we spoke about before? or they can have a really lovely holiday, or they can do something else. What does that money actually do for them? Or if it's buying a car, holiday, whatever. There's loads of things that can motivate people. Or some people are motivated by being top of the list, like you were or still are, that the top of the, and they like that. They like people to go up to them and go, Jeremy, you did so well with that. That's how are you doing that? And that's a good ego thing to have. And that can really let a fire under them to be at the top, but also giving back as well, giving back to their peers, giving back to other people as well, which can light a fire under people. But it could just be a really good conversation with a client, because it is a client and you are helping your clients to help them to get what they want. It could be that good feeling that they get from satisfying the needs for the client, which is really good in itself. I feel really good. If I've done a great job with a client, I feel really good. That motivates me and that inspires me, because I know I've done some really fantastic work.
No, it makes sense. And everything that you said really resonated with me personally, as a recovering sales professional. But I will say one thing that stood out the most was that feeling that I got every year, strutting my way, up on the stage to receive that, pinnacle award, right? And, thousands of my colleagues from around the country, being able to witness that and give me a standing ovation was in and of itself incredibly motivating for me to hit the ground running, as we entered into the next fiscal year.
Oh, that must have been really good. And the bonuses on top of that must have been really good. And the kudos with all of your peers going, how do you do that? What did you do? There must be something that I can learn from you.
Yeah, but I do want to be totally transparent with you, and that is, I was in the SaaS-based world for 2.5 decades in technology sales. And the one thing that I honestly fell out of love with, I loved the people, I loved the culture, I loved, interacting with, clients and prospects, and, kind of the, learning more about kind of that psychology of selling. So I appreciated all of that. The one thing that I really had a hard time with, in full disclosure, Jason, is I struggled treating customers like they were merely transactions. And so, being a hunter, being the frontline, bag carrier, right? My job was to bring in the meat, so to speak. I was that hunter, right? Out there on the front lines. And then of course we had an implementation and a service team, that took over from there. But there's, really in most SaaS based, sales environment, there's no such thing as residuals. You eat what you kill, right? And while I did really well for 2.5 decades, I really felt that really fell out of favor with me. And so I made a transition into more of a role, which I'm in now, where I work with potential investors on helping them place capital and passive real estate investments. And that type of an interaction is 100% relationship based. There's nothing transactional about it. If you treat an investor like they're a transaction, they're never going to invest with you again, right?
Yeah, I've heard that so many times, and it is relationship based, because you want to build and nurture that, and you want the idea of helping them build value in their portfolio or whatever it might be, and help them make long money in the bank or whatever it might be. But that must be all inspiring. You must get a really good satisfaction from that.
Yeah, 100%. I do. And I appreciate your, sharing that as well. As we kind of wrap up here, I would be remiss not to ask you, one kind of final, question, or I've got maybe one more after that too. But and that is, I talk to a lot of, sales guys that just have this fear, and maybe this is not just, a salesperson's fear. It's maybe just kind of agnostic of any type of profession out there. But a lot of people are concerned about, is AI going to take over my job someday? So I'd like for you to maybe speak specifically about why you feel confident, and I do as well, why AI and automation cannot replace a sales professional, because of the fact that people buy from people, and it's very difficult to build rapport and credibility and trust and authenticity and genuineness and all those things, by communicating with an AI platform.
Yeah, lots of conversations around this at the moment. My personal perspective is I see AI as a project management tool. That's how I view it. It helps and quickens up certain aspects. It's like a time management tool. That's how I look at it. For me, it's very smart and it's getting quicker and quicker. But in our profession, it's it's a feeling. I don't think AI can get a feeling, and I don't think AI can speak the way that we. Again, it's getting really pretty close. But the genuine sticking your hand out and shaking someone's hand and actually having that personal connection with someone, that is hugely powerful, and helping your clients to build value, save money, time, effort, product, solution, whatever it might be. But that power, that human connection of feeling great and helping them to feel great, you can't get that out of AI. So I always believe that we're utilizing people, human centric skills. This is where the power is going to go forward. So I think at the moment we're rising high at the AI at the moment, but there will be a top. Uh, where it goes, I don't know, but I think us as humans and human connections is still going to be there. It's not going to be AI bots talking to each other and selling and doing whatever else. I don't think that's ever going to happen. We are still human.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more there. And actually, I think, AI could be leveraged as an additional tool, in the salesperson's, tool chest in order to be able to help, maybe articulate or communicate a point, to a potential, prospect or client. I know for me personally, oftentimes I may craft an email response and I'm going to run it through AI just to see if it's got any additional suggestions and how I can, further polish up, the message. And maybe if I need it to be more convincing, or I need there to be, some kind of a call to action, right? I'm going to leverage, AI to kind of assist me, through that process.
Yeah, I think well, that's good. Everyone uses it. Every single person uses it to clean up their messaging and whatever else, if it's an email or whatever. But make sure that you don't use the AI words and all of that. So you create your own GPT and whatever else that you might use to make it sound more human. But use your own tone, your own language behind that. I think that's where things are going. Like, we all use it, so everyone uses it. So it's not a hidden thing. And I've been using AI for years. I've been using Grammarly for years because sometimes my English is not as spot on as it should be. As much as I'm English and I should utilize the English language, but I go through it and go, well, there's a better way of saying that. So Grammarly I've been using for 6-7 years.
Yeah, that's great. Where you were a little bit ahead of the curve there. So, Jason, what would maybe be one or two different ways that our listening audience can learn a little bit more about you and maybe connect with you offline?
LinkedIn is always a good approach. I'm always on LinkedIn. You can find me, just do a search for Jason Cooper. Not the drummer from The Cure, but no, you'll find me from there. You can find me on Instagram, Jason A. Cooper, or on my website, jasoncooper.io. Remember, it's .io, not AI or anything else like that. That's it. And that's how you can find me. I don't use Twitter anymore.
Sounds good. Well, we will certainly put those links in the show notes for the episode. Jason, really appreciated the value that you've brought our audience today.
Thank you. And Germany, I really honestly appreciate you reaching out to me. And it's an honor to be on your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And likewise. And listening audience, thank you again for jumping into yet another episode of The Freedom Point. We look forward to having you join us on the next episode.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the Freedom Point podcast. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decision, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the Freedom Point podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.